Hi, I'm Teresa Polito. Thanks for watching. I'm the author of 2 books on the craft of locker hooking, a craft that I feel has yet to be fully explored. Now, while both my books cover the basics, everything you need to get started, and both actually include 30 unique designs, my latest book, Locking Loops, also includes a new set of materials, new finds, discoveries that I include for creating beautiful designs with this craft. It also includes a new set of techniques, some fun new ideas, including one that I'm really excited about called ruched frames. And today I'm going to show you how to make a Kindle cover using this new ruched frames technique. For a free pattern, visit colorcrazy.com. And if you like this video, please share it with a friend. Now let's get started. Ruched frames is a new technique I created that I feature in the Locking Loops book that allows you to create padded areas within a locker hooked frame like you see in this French country basket design. And it also allows you to showcase beautiful fabrics. Here's an example of this beautiful hand-dyed batik in the trivet, and also this bracelet I'm wearing made with different types of hand-dyed silks and recycled silks as well. You can also create different shapes like you see here with this pepper design trivet, and you can use different types of materials within the ruched frame to create lots of texture. And I guess if I had to say what the top 2 things were about ruched frames and why I created it is, one, primarily to create lots of texture and also create an area where you can feature beautiful hand-dyed fabrics and create different textural designs like you see with this velvety, beautiful velvety petals design with a recycled silk here too. So the first step in getting started with the ruched frames Kindle cover is to gather your materials. You're going to need a 5 mesh canvas square cut to, well, it's actually a rectangle cut to the pattern size, what's indicated on the pattern. You're going to want to choose some fabric strips and maybe ribbons or yarns that you want to work with. And I have some colors here that I'm looking at using. And you're going to need some locking medium. And you're also going to need a heavy, bulky yarn that you can create the padding with for the ruched frames. And this is really great. And this works really well too. This is a nice, finely woven wool, nice and fluffy. That'll work well as well. And so the first thing to do is to actually fold over your canvas. And by folding it over according to the pattern, you're going to crease a row, and that basically means taking a row and squishing it, and that will create a nice frame. And you do that, work that all the way around. And once you've finished folding over your canvas, then you're ready to start locker hooking. Now for this particular design, we're not going to be whip stitching the edge because we're going to be actually stitching that together and assembling somewhat. So we are going to take our locker hook, thread some locking medium like you see here, this dark one, and I've decided to use 2 different types of materials here, a fabric strip in cotton and a really nice hand-dyed silk that I bought that will add really nice texture. And you can start anywhere around the edge. And if you would really like to have your pattern showing, you can actually take one of these Sharpies or a similar marker and mark your pattern on the canvas before you get started. I actually just like to count the rows and follow the pattern that way. So I'm going to start right in the middle. And what you want to do is, again, top down, pick up your fabric strips, hold them together, and start pulling them up. And if you've never locker hooked before and don't know too much about it, you can watch my 2 videos, the first 2 videos that I made that actually show you how to get started, what you need to buy, and the various basic techniques for locker hooking. And so there I have pulled up 2 loops, but what you want to do is every time you pull up a loop is give it a tug and make sure that they're nice and consistent in height. And you continue to do that following your pattern, pulling up both pieces, both strips. And by the way, you can make this combination here anything that you like. You can add more texture by using a yarn. I just thought this would be kind of fun and add a nice smooth and also a little bit of a coarse texture combined. And you keep doing that, and once you do that, you of course pull your locking medium through to hold it in place, and keep working this until you are completing the pattern for the framed locker hooked edges. So once you have finished locker hooking your piece, you'll have the edges locker hooked and you'll have the frames ready for the ruched frame technique. And you're going to want to take a nice bulky yarn and thread it through your tapestry needle like this. And to start patting the frame, you start from the top down, and you just at the very corner work your tapestry needle through to the back and leave a nice long tail that fits the length of the frame. And on the back you do small stitches, so you go over to the next square and pull through, and then you go over again the length of the frame to the next square and pull it through until you have it the full length. And again, small stitches on the back, go over to the next square and pull over the length of the square, and you keep doing this until you have padded the entire frame. And it looks like I have a slip stitch in here that I will have to take out. There we go. Just like that. And you keep working it. Small stitches on the back and then the full length on the front. And I'm just about done with the padding. I'm going back and doubling up because I want this to be extra padded. Small stitches on the back, pull it to the front, I think that's good enough, so I'm going to clip it right there. And you do that with each of your frames. Just stitch in the padding and then we'll be ready to go. So I've just finished stitching on the padding for the ruched frame, and I'm going to finish this last stitch here. And I think I've got just enough padding. So this is how it's going to look once you have it all stitched in. And it looks a little bit unruly, but you can have loose tails just sort of hanging in there as you stitch on more. And you can actually make this as padded as you like for a really kind of lofty feel in your ruched frames. But that's just about it. So now we're going to look at how you stitch in a ruched frame. So now we're ready to learn how to stitch in a ruched frame, and you're going to want to select your fabric strip, and I'm going to use this really nice blue. And you need about 1.5 yards or so, not too long because it does get a little worn as you're stitching it through. And it's easier to work with if it's not that long. So to get started, you can start stitching in from the back and just leave a tail, and you want to start right in the frame where it's been locker hooked, at the very edge, not where you have covered it with the ruching, but right in here, right where it's locker hooked. And you start at the very corner and leave a tail in the back, about 1.5 inches or so. And then you're going to want to go right over, we're going to be covering this padding to create the ruched frame, and you're going to want to go right over to the next square across, right where it's locker hooked, and stitch that through. And then use your fingers to make sure that lies nicely across, just like that, and tucked in there. And then wrap around the back. once again, right in the next square where it has been locker hooked, toward the front, pull that through and make sure it's arranged properly, crosses over into the next square where it's been locker hooked, and oops, and just like that, and you repeat that until you have your entire frame filled. And I haven't really decided how I'm going to place my colors, so before we finish this, I highly recommend that you test the colors you want to use, whether you're going to use fibers or a combination of yarn and fabric to do your ruche frames. It's really important to test your colors and make sure you're happy with them before you do a lot of stitching. But let me just do a few more stitches so you can see what this looks like. And so it starts padding, it starts actually ruching around the padding, and it looks really, really neat. And you get this nice padded area. And so since we're making a Kindle cover, actually having this kind of padding is really handy because it's going to protect your Kindle. And there we go, there's one more stitch. And you arrange it, pat it in place. And that's what it starts looking like. And you know, if you feel you don't have enough padding in there, you can stop now and stitch on some more. You can stitch on as much as you like, as long as it's staying within the frame. So the next step, we're going to look at experimenting with colors and trying colors that you like before you finish ruching all your frames. So here I have just stitched in a few samples of the colors I want to use, just to make sure that I really like these colors. And I highly recommend doing this. You always should test your strips or fibers, whatever you're going to use. And a great way to get inspiration for choosing colors is just to come up with different accents, buttons or ribbons or whatever you would like to use. And for this particular design, I actually chose these buttons, and I think they both look great, but I love the colors in this button, and this is what inspired me to choose these colors. So I have here some of the pre-cut cotton fabric strips that are on colorcrazy.com, and they're available there in a beautiful turquoise and a nice chartreuse green. And then I also have this pretty swatch of hand-dyed batik, and I love this pattern. I think that they're all going to work really well together, so I'm really happy with my choices. I'm just about finished with the stitching of the ruche frames, and I'm really happy with the color choices. I went in and put in extra padding on the outside to just make it extra cushy. And I'm using this fabric strip that I actually tore. If you don't like the unraveled edges, I actually love tearing fabric strips. It goes much faster. And I happen to like the frayed edges sometimes, but if you don't, you can actually fold it in as you're stitching it, and you won't see any of the fraying. And I'll show you what I mean by folding it. You basically just put it in place and turn it over, and then as you pull in the stitch, just neatly folds under, just like that. And you keep repeating that until you're done. This is really exciting. So I love that I was able to take inspiration from that one button, but I think I've decided to use this button as the accent. It just looks really, really neat. And it's actually similar to this one. That design, actually. Same button. Sometimes the unraveling gets in the way. You can just tear it out. Okay, we're almost done here. Just a few more stitches, and then this will be completely finished. So now I've finished stitching in the ruched frames, and they look great. And once you reach this point, you're going to want to do some finishing touches like sewing in your tails. And I'm almost done with that. And basically you pull up all your tails to the front and stitch them in, both for your locker hooking and your ruched frames. But I want to show you now how you go to assembling this. And you're going to want to fold it in half once you're done with that, and start stitching at the end here. This is an envelope design, and you'll find the pattern for it on colorcrazy.com. So to stitch in, you start at the corner and you leave a tail, and you're basically sealing the side, and you want to cover all of the canvas, even if it requires stitching through the same square more than once. So you pull through and use your finger to arrange the loop to cover the edge. Just like that. And that looks like a good start. And you may want to do that over, but you get the idea. You want to make sure you're covering the canvas completely so you don't see it showing through. So use your fingers to put the strip in place. And there we go, tore that off. And I think I want to do an extra stitch here. And you continue doing this along the edge until you have completely stitched to the corner. And then for the opening, you're going to want to stop there and then just frame the edges. And this is also covered in my Locking Loops book. And then assemble on this side. And then once that's done, you're ready to put your finishing touches on there, which is the nice button or closure of your choice. So here it is, and I'm really happy with it. I went ahead and used the button that I mentioned, and I think it looks great. The colors work really well with it. I ended up using contrast stitching to stitch the sides together into the envelope design, and I used the contrast stitching also to frame the top edges. Leather strips with beads to tie on, and it's done. Just one last tip that I have for you. If you find that your ruched stitches are a little bit too loose or they move too much, use a little drop of glue. I like using this fabric tack, and you can just put a little drop down and press it down and let it dry. Or you can also use Quick Grip. I love using this, it dries really fast. So just a tiny drop, and then you let that dry and it's good to go. This design here is actually a really nice snug fit for the Kindle Fire. And this is a slightly looser fit, so you have extra space for other things. You can also use both of these designs for the older Kindle with the keyboard, which is my Kindle. I love traveling with this because it's nice and light, and you can use it outdoors. And this Kindle Fire is a friend, so it was really nice that she lent it to me. And both patterns are now available on colorcrazy.com. So thanks for watching, and until next time, have fun locker hooking.